Welcome back to another episode of the Thunderstock Show, a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. This season is all about talking with EOSIs about what does it mean to get it, want to have capacity when working with not just people in your team, but with your clients, as well as how to really work on your business, not just in your business. Today's special guest is Tricia Drake, Traction with Tricia. Love the tagline out of
Thank
Idaho.
you. Yeah.
Tricia, first question for you is when did you know that being an EOSI is something you got, you wanted, and you had capacity to do?
Well, Ross, thanks for having me on today. That is a really funny question. I think for me, when I really was like, "Oh, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing," was probably 6 months in after I'd started my practice. I'd been to an EOS QCE where we get together as EOS implementers every quarter, right? And sitting in the audience, and the visionary Mark O'Donnell comes up on the screen and he's talking and he's saying, "Hey, we have to GWC our seat as well. These are our values. This is what we do." Da, da. And so it's like you're people analyzing your own self to say, am I living the EOS core values and do I GWC the seat? And I think before that, I was kind of iffy. And he says it every time. And he says, if you are not GWCing the seat, you can leave now, right? You have to make a decision. Like, am I the right person in the right seat being an EOS implementer? And if not, like, you know where the door is. You have to GWC. They all have to be yeses. And I think before that, I was a little bit of a no. There's, when you're an EOS implementer, you're doing everything. You're wearing all the hats. You have to do the biz dev. You have to do the
Mhm.
sessions. You have to do all the things. And that was difficult for me since I've been doing this now full time for a couple of years. I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely GWC. But it was a little difficult at the beginning.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I love hearing that frame where it wasn't until you were open and honestly challenged by somebody else that you really people analyze yourself, because a lot of leaders, they do the people analyzer tool to review their accountability chart, their organizational structure, but not usually an exercise for clarity breaks or self-reflection.
Right.
What in your journey and career leading up to being EOSI led you to say, you know what, this is something I might wanna do?
So my entire career has been operational proficiencies and efficiencies. No matter what role I was in. It started in an admin role and kind of just moved my way up in different companies. But I always found that I took what I was doing and tried to make it the most efficient. I was the one writing the procedures. I was writing the documents. I was wondering why our guys, in the construction industry, why we were going to Home Depot 14 times a day. How can we make that better? What's missing in our system that our guys are not prepared? And so that's how my brain works, that logical system, how to from here to there. And so that's what I've done my entire career. And then when I got introduced to EOS, that was one of an aha moment for me. That was an aha moment. And I thought, wow, this is like, it's right here. It's all packaged and you just follow the system. And it worked with my brain. And then I started implementing in a couple companies that I was working with. And then I thought, this is amazing. Seeing other people's success in using EOS, it's not like they were struggling and, on the verge of bankruptcy. They were already successful businesses. And then seeing what it did for them, it just launched them to the next level. Seeing that, I was like, I love this. I want to be able to 10x my impact on the world, where before I could only work with usually one, maybe two companies at a time. Seeing the way this is packaged, it's just a complete set of tools. It just worked for me. And I was like, this is it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. And I jumped in.
Yeah, I love the background of operational efficiency. Typically sounds more of what EOS people call integrator type role,
Hmm.
but then taking that leap and being like, hey, how do I do that same approach that you're doing for the businesses for my own EOS life, my own life, and
Yeah.
impact as many people as possible? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
What, coming from your background and the things you have learned along the way to better make things efficient and optimization wise, what are some of the things that you look for best fit clients to serve? I know you said you had a construction background. Do you tend to gravitate more towards like industry type or size of business or geographic location? Like, what are the things that say, hey, this is probably going to be the most optimal fit?
Oh, that's a great question. So I didn't really mean to niche into construction. It just kind of happened, naturally, which is great. And that's a little bit of a, oh, somebody thinks I'm doing a great job and they're referring me to their friends in the industry. For me, I have kind of niched into construction. I do have other clients, but I also kind of keep on the smaller side. I'm not
Mm.
dealing with companies that are on that large, 100 million, 250 employees. That's not really my sweet spot. I'm more in the 10 to 75 employees, right? 0 to 20 million dollars ish. That's where I've really niched. And I think it's more because I I love the way that they work and I love when people want to learn. I think that's what it is. And so many times I hear people say, my clients or potential clients, they say, I got to where I'm at on like pure grit, just grinding, working. And now I've been stuck for a minute. I don't know where to go from here. I don't know how to elevate my whole team. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, let's go. Right. I can do that. I can help you do that. Figure out what's going to get you to the next step. And we can see the increments. Right? I have one client of mine that's grown 40% year over year, which is awesome. I mean, it's been amazing to watch them grow. But it's like you can see that. It's apparent when you're sometimes I think when you're dealing with sums of money that are so large, some people can't comprehend. When you're dealing with smaller companies where it's like they started at 2 million and then they hit 2.5 or 2.8 and now they're at 3.5. You can see that and you can see the way that it's affecting them as well as the rest of their company, and I love that.
Yeah, I can actually relate with that too. Like I have a client that is in that same sort of thing, and reflecting on my own experience, it's like the amount of impact that you can have on that,
Mhm.
you know, to take somebody from 2.5 million and see them over the course of your relationship go to 5 and beyond, it's a
Right.
lot harder to double a business, I think, from 100 million to 200 million, right? That's a pretty big jump. But from 2.5 to 5, you're impacting the local community, their lives, the
Mhm.
founder's life a lot. So it sounds like that's really important to you is, where can you maximize and optimize the impact you have for the organization? And you just found out like you found that to be a sweet spot from the core value standpoint, more of like the soft skills. What are some of the traits, the character traits that these organizations may have in common that you really, when you're talking to them for the first time, you're like, they get it, like they're a green flag. And how do you sort of get a sense for that?
So, I think a lot of the time is when you see that they're hungry. I think if I could just got fed warm leads all day long, people who really want to do this, that it makes things so much easier because you walk in and they're prepped. They're kind of prepped and ready. Well, I already read the book, I've been reading the blog, I watched a couple videos, like how do we just get going and start on this? Those are the people, obviously, they're easier, they love it, that they want to grow. Sometimes when I walk in and people say, "We don't know about EOS," but our friend who referred you, they love EOS, they like you, we just want to learn more. And to me, that's the thing where they're not like, you know, what are your references and how can you show me that this works and this and this and this? They're willing to listen and just
Mm.
be open for somebody else's perspective. They're okay with somebody like me coming in and asking hard questions like, what was your revenue last year? What's your goal for this year? What do you want to do next year? And when they look at me and say, we don't know, like, this is what we did last year. We haven't really done any planning for this year. And next year, who even knows? But man, can you help us with that? That open-mindedness is the green flag for me to say, oh, they're willing to listen. They might not be like, yeah, it's a fit, let's go, but they're willing to listen and learn. And I love that.
It's a difference between skepticism and curiosity, right? Because I think a
Yes.
skeptic has questions, just like a curious person, but a skeptic has like the right and wrong answer that they want to hear in mind already, versus a curious person is like, hey, it's an open ended question. Like, just tell me more. I'm listening. Like, one's listening to
Yeah.
respond and one's listening to learn or to, digest, whatever you want to call it. That's a really interesting frame. I'm going to take that, Tricia. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh
I'm
no,
gonna use that now.
that's totally fine. Ross, I loved how you framed that, the skepticism versus the curiosity, 100%. Yeah.
Right, and I mean, if you have a help first core value and a growth mindset core value, it's like that doesn't really. I think of skepticism in like a scarcity mindset type of vein. It's like, well, that doesn't really value align anyway, right?
Yes.
Like I believe that it can work if we work together, we do the work, right? So, what are some of the red flags? We've identified one. We've identified one for sure. But are there any other
Yes.
things that come out to you? You're like, this either might not be a good fit for EOS, or this might be better referred out to somebody else that's not Tricia.
Right. I feel like anyway, I like to joke around in my session rooms, right? I try not to take things too seriously. I'm kind of a joker. We have fun. There's music, there's stuff like that. If someone is on the line where they're just way too serious and, kind of hard lined where this is business and everybody's business and that's something that feel like is not a good fit for me. Oh, but there's other EOS implementers out there that might be a good fit for them. So one thing
Mm,
that I do love about our community is that we're very abundance minded. If I'm not a fit for you, but EOS is a fit for you, let me find somebody else that can come in and help you implement. So yeah, there's been a couple like that where I'm like, you guys seem really, really great, but I probably am not the right implementer for you.
sure.
Yeah, but when I'm in the session and I feel like someone is always not that I'm the smartest one in the room, but that they are smarter than me and want to continually prove that. That's sometimes a little bit hard for me because if they're not willing to be open to other people's perspectives, again, that skepticism thing kind of coming in, they're probably not going to be open to someone coming into their company and challenging the way that they run things. With EOS, we want to change the way you operate in your business. Again, what you were doing, what you've been doing this whole time got you here. You have to be willing to change that to get to the next level. Are you willing to let some people go? Are you willing to hire new people? Those type of things. You have to be willing. And that's a huge red flag. I feel like you can see that when you walk in the room when somebody's not willing.
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting. It's almost like they're almost comparing their seat to yours versus like they're totally different seats. Like we have different requirements to fill this seat the right way. And if we can't agree on that fundamental truth, then it's probably gonna be to get consensus on many other things. That's really interesting. Yeah, I can speak that and say there's been times where I've worked with clients as a fractional CMO that they really like. They're like, I'm a marketing expert too. Like, well, why am I here?
Right.
Like I don't know everything. I know what I know, and I'm open and honest about it. But like, I'm not here to. This is not a debate club. Like, let's solve some problems. Like, let's fix your stuff. Same.
Yeah,
So
there's
same applies to you.
yeah, it's not a competition. And a lot of times people will say, well, we're in this industry, right? We're in the dentistry industry, right? How much experience do you have in the dental industry? And I'm like, almost zero. But that's not why I'm here. I'm not a consultant. You guys know the dental industry. I know EOS. You're the master of your craft. I'm the master of mine.
One of your prerequisites isn't how much do you know about EOS? Have you already read the traction library? Because if it was,
Right.
you'd have a heck of a lot less clients. Like you're here to learn together. I love that frame. That's really interesting. And for those that are listening that, are in different industries and they face that same problem of I call it being terminally unique, where they're so unique that it's to their own detriment. It's like
Yeah.
let's take that 30,000 foot view and say, hey, no, I don't know everything. I had an objection from a prospect a year ago. It's like, hey, have you worked with home service construction companies in my area, in my size? And what I want to say is, well, if I did, then, and I had an NDA, I couldn't be talking to you. Like
Sure.
that would be a bad thing, wouldn't it?
That's funny.
Going back to, the idea of working on your business, right?
Mhm.
You help founders and owners and leaders work on their business oftentimes. And I think one of the things that I really like about talking to EOSIs, Tricia, is that they eat their own dog food or they like practice what they preach. So what are
Mhm.
some of the things that you do um, to work on your business to make sure you're not always working in your business?
Great question. A lot. Yes. So many people get caught up in working in the business because they're wearing all the hats or doing all the things. And so really taking a step back is what you need to do. I do clarity breaks for sure. This great book, it's sitting right here on my desk. It's the Clarity Field Guide, written by
Chris White,
Chris White. Yes.
it's in my bag.
I love it. I just used it the other day. I was like, I was having a day, right, Ross? And
Mhm.
I'm like, nothing is working for me right now. I'm super frustrated. And I'm
You're
like,
in the winter season that day.
yes, yes, and I love this book. I recommend it to all of my clients because some people are like, "I can't just go and sit in a room with a blank sheet of paper and think." And I'm
It
like, "You'd
helps.
be surprised." But yeah, and so, I definitely do the clarity break. I do a clarity break. I can answer the questions in this, and it's amazing how fast it can just be like, great. I got it all out of my head. It's on paper. Some of the stuff I don't have to worry about. And now I have a great idea that I can go implement or whatever that might be, and last week it really, really helped, or 2 weeks ago, it really, really helped me with some stuff that I was trying to work through. But yeah, stuff like that. I do practice what I preach. I have my own VTO, right? I know what our core values are. I have our core focus. What's my core focus? I know who my target market is. Mine's a little bit different than the broader EOS one. We already talked about that. Mine's a little bit different from that, but I have my own 3-year picture. My whole vision traction organizer is filled out. And I look at that. I make sure that still on track to reach those numbers. And if not, what do I need to do to figure that out? And so I'm taking that 30,000-foot level at least once a month to just reevaluate and make sure that I'm on track to do the things that I want to do. I want to 10x my impact. Absolutely love being in the background, I guess, with companies. That's, how I started. The visionaries out there, the owner, the C-level suite, they're out there, and I'm in the background making everything work. And I still do that with EOS. And so I still have to do that with my own company to make sure that things are still working and I can impact the amount of people that I want to impact. And so, yeah, I mean, it's nothing different than I would say to any other visionary, any other integrator and leadership team. You've got to do the clarity breaks. You have to be able to step back
Mhm.
and look at it from a different view because I mean, working in, right, that grind, all of a sudden the year's gone and what happened?
Yeah, I'll tell you. You mentioned the tool of the VTO, how you regularly check that and you
Hmm.
make sure you're aligned as part of, you're stepping back and reflecting. I've rarely ever had a quarter where the rocks were 100% clean, easy, piece of cake, exact result that I always thought I was going to get, just on schedule and time. Right. I don't think that, and I think most people, be honest, that's usually the case. Like it's just, it's a goal setting. You're going in the right direction. But
Yeah.
then when I look at the 1 year goal, whether it's like my own businesses or my clients, we're pretty darn close. We're like the 80%, right? It's a healthy thing for goal accomplishment. So what are some of the like 1 year goals you have for your practice? And then what are some of the ways that you use rocks, like for those that don't know what that means, like 90-day goals that are like the most
Hmm.
important thing to move the business forward. Like how do you prioritize time management so that you're not super big picture, not your 10-year goal, but your 1 year goal
Right.
feels really real?
That's a great question. I think for a lot of people, when I talk to my clients and I'm like, do you have a 1 year plan? Do you have a goal for this year? And they're like, what? No, it's January. I can't even think about tomorrow. I'm grinding today. And so really what we do is we take that 1 year plan, figure out what that big picture is, and then chunk it into the 90-day rocks. Right. And really figuring out for me was I have, my goals are the number of clients I have, obviously my revenue, right? My profit margin. I have a couple personal goals in there, right? How many yoga poses that I can do holding and that kind of stuff. So a lot of mental stuff for me as well. But then it's like, I can keep on track with those because I've broken them down and I know what I need to accomplish in the next 90 days so that I'm laying that foundation to reach that 1 year plan. And I think with some people, I don't know, some people, I would say a lot of people, I think, what is it? January 18th is the day where most New Year's resolutions are dead.
Makes
Right.
sense.
People are like, I'm
Yeah.
done. I did it for like a day and now I'm done. And so that's what we want to get rid of. And even with the way that my brain works, this is kind of a new concept for me. When I found EOS and started reading the book and dealing with it, I was like, this makes sense to me. This chunking it down into 90-day goals. And so I can work on something for 90 days. I get sick of that, right? I'm done working on that. Now I want to move to something else. That's the way we work. That's the way humans are. But really looking at that and understanding that what I'm doing today is really actually helping my bottom line at the end of the year. And getting people to understand that sometimes can be a little bit difficult. When I tell people, okay, look at your rocks, do those actually help with the end goal? Does that get you closer to that? And you'll have people go, "Oh, no. Why are we doing that? Scrap that one. Let's try a different one." And so I hope that answers your question. But I do the same thing for myself that I do with my clients. Even my husband and I, we have our little family VTO, right? Our personal VTO, what our focus is, what our goals are, and we chunk those down into 90-day goals to make sure that we're on track to reach the big ones.
Well, for those that are only listening and not viewing the video, you have a sign in the back that says, "But did you document it?" And I think that's hilarious on this topic, particularly
Yeah.
because I never thought in the frame of like a New Year's resolution. And you're right, like I've been guilty of saying I'm going to do this thing. Unlike with my business, like if I say I'm going to lose the weight or do X amount of workouts, like if
Mhm,
you don't put it down on a scorecard and you're not doing it like a weekly commitment where there's other eyes that can see it and like, hey,
mhm.
you're off track, it's red.
Yep.
That in and of itself would probably increase the throughput of a New Year's resolution if they just treat it the same way.
Mhm,
But I think one of the main differences too is you made a really good point there. A lot of owners are just like, what do I need to do by tomorrow? The end of
mhm,
the week look like versus it's really sometimes daunting, especially for like a 10-year picture to think
mhm,
of like a 1 year. But if you just chunk it into quarters, like, okay, there's 4 quarters in a year, like let's just commit to, you can do anything for 90 days. What I've found is when there wasn't this working on your business mindset with the guardrails of EOS, a lot of owners I know or just people really will switch their 90 it'll like restart. It's like, no, for me, like I might be 6 weeks into a quarter and I might say that this rock, while it's done, did not put my it's not as profitable as it needs to be, or it's not as effective, or it's just not the campaign.
yeah,
I'm just like, we're going to see it through till the end. And same thing, like I think if people have the patience to stick with something for 90 days, they can do it they can do it 3 more times in the year and just change the rock,
mhm,
right? So then my question becomes to you is like, you said one of your goals was to, increase, your client size. And we don't need to know where you're at, where you want to be. That doesn't matter. But like, what are the
mhm.
activities, the scorecards? Like, what are you tracking, documenting to make sure that you're on track?
Right. So for me personally, the stuff I track is the activities that lead to what I want at the end of the year, right? How many clients I want. I do track my clients, right? But that's not the thing that drives me. It's how many meaningful conversations that I have in a week, right? How many books that I can give away, how many, we call them VTH calls, right? VTH is the three uniques of EOS, or Vision Traction Healthy, right? So I talk to people about that and see how that resonates with them. But those are the things that I'm tracking. How many times I ask for referrals, right? People say, "Oh my gosh, I love EOS," or "We use it," or this, or "You helped us do this so much." Great. Okay, who else do you know? Who else do you know that might be struggling like you were that I could help? And so I do track those types of things because what you track, right? What gets measured improves. And those are the things that I want to do. So March for me is not very busy. Once we meet with our clients after the first 3 sessions, we go every quarter, right? So
Hmm.
every 90 days, I'm meeting with my clients. And for some reason, because everybody's mostly on the same fiscal year, December is the end. I have the end of the quarter is the most busy that I am. So March is 100% biz dev for me. And I absolutely love it because that's the stuff that drives my business. My scorecard's super green because that's all I'm doing is finding the right people to talk to see how I can help them, right? You mentioned one of the core values of EOS is help first. How can I help you?
I love that you mentioned focusing on the leading indicators for
Mhm.
scorecard metrics,
Yeah.
which is like controlling the controllables, the inputs, like, you know what I mean? I think that I had a conversation, I think it was yesterday with a business owner, one of my clients. And, I sit in the marketing seat in the leadership team. And one of the goals was to have 30 meetings for the quarter for the company. We
Mhm.
got 45 on the calendar, right? Pretty green, should be good. And then the conversation went to, well, how many were closed won? Like how many did you close? Like, this is awful. This is like a C plus. This is not, revenue's not in the door. And I'm like,
Hmm.
Well, if that's what you were worried about, which is a lagging indicator, I think,
Mhm.
of, the conversations, like, yes, they were the right person. Yes, all check, check, check. Like, but then what I should have, now that I'm talking to you, I know I should have responded with, well, then why didn't we have that as a scorecard? Why don't we have that as a
Right.
rock? Like, I'm not just doing we're not just booking the meetings to say we did it, but then it comes back to the planning of, okay, well, what is your sales process? Like, do
Mhm.
you expect a 7-day close from the first time you talk to them? Or do you expect a 4-week close? Because if it's a 4-week close, which is probably more realistic for a lot of people, well, then that's a quarter two problem.
Right. Yeah.
So I guess my last question for you in terms of working on your business versus in your business is, if you could have, um, one piece of advice to help maybe other EOSIs or just maybe other like solopreneurs, people that are just getting started, right? But before the threshold of being ready to afford and invest in EOSI, what is like one piece of advice you'd give them on like helping to attract not just, more revenue, but helping the people that they're most uniquely gifted to help, right? Like, how
Okay.
would you talk, give that advice?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to your target market, honestly, and understanding really what that is. And I feel like a lot of people talk about being intentional with your time because time is limited. Nobody wants to work 80 hours a week. That's very rare. And so if you can get the most out of your day, be super, super intentional with that, as intentional as you can be. Find your target market, find out where they are, find out who they hang out with, whatever that might be, and do those things. It's also as easy as figuring out what you like, right? If you're a golfer, then go golf. I mean, within reason. I love that too. But who are you going to meet on the golf course, right? How many tournaments can you get in a year? Those type of things. Because you're doing what you love, and people who love golf are also golfing, and then you can find that common ground. But find your target market. Your market is not everyone. Even like an insurance agent. Yesterday I asked someone who's your target market, and he said, "Oh, homeowners." And I'm like, how many homeowners are there in the state of Idaho? I don't even know,
Uh,
right?
a good amount.
Yeah. So, and I said, can you specialize that a little bit? Doesn't mean that you're only going to sell to the woman yoga person who has 3 kids that makes this much money. That might be your target market, but there's all these other people who peripherally will come in. But how can you focus your energy and really work with the people that you want to work with? When we first met, we talked about that a lot. And you were like, love to work with people who run on EOS. The companies work a little bit better. They're a little bit more organized, right? They have that system in place. That should be the same for everyone. Not that they need to run on EOS, but that you want to work with the people that you want to work with, figure out figure out those people and be super intentional. And I think doing it that way helps people grow quicker because they're not just throwing the spaghetti at the wall and just trying to get everybody in the whole world to be their client, because we all know that can happen.
I couldn't agree more. 2 thumbs up to that one, Trisha. Last question is not super deep, but we're coming
Okay.
towards the end of the show is,
Yeah.
how can people get in touch and connect with you?
Perfect. So my anybody can schedule time with me, 15, 30, whatever, how many minutes that they want. My website is tractionwithtricia.com. And that's also my handle everywhere on Instagram, Facebook. I think I'm on TikTok, but I have never been on TikTok, so that's okay. But yeah, you can reach out to me there or my phone number. You can text me. That's the best way to get a hold of me. 1-598-0583. All that information is on my website though.
Awesome. Thank you, Trisha, for your time and the great conversation. And thank you, everyone, for listening. My only ask is that if you enjoyed the show and you found value, share it with a friend who also might. Until next time, be well.